Do you hate to make the first move in a battle? Bring artillery instead. With their massive range, you will snipe your enemies without engaging, forcing them to be the ones pushing you. Hello senators and legates, welcome to Total War Tactics. Today we will see the effect of having artillery on the field of battle. As you can see, we're going to be doing this in Rep 2 with the Divide Et Impera mod enabled. My friend and fellow creator, Heroes of the Greeks, will help me today. We're going to be covering a tiny bit of historical context, the theoretical formation, how to execute it, the army composition, how to use it in game, both against the player and the AI, how to defeat it, and last, my final verdict. If there are any parts of the video you want to see, there are timestamps in the description for you to use. But with that said, let's introduce the tactic. When we are talking about artillery in ancient history, we are referring to catapults, unadjusted ballistae, scorpions, and other means of siege equipment. Historically, one of the first inventions of artillery can be traced back to the ancient Greeks. It was an evolution from the bow as a means to shoot further and thus be way more deadly. More often than not, their great size forced these powerful weapons to only be used as city defenses, mounted on the walls. Soon after that, however, through evolution, we would see people like Alexander the Great, the Romans, and many others use such weapons for siege warfare with great success. Scorpions, which is what we are gonna be using in this video, was a common weapon in the legions, but it was still rare enough for it only to take up one of the 20 slots available in Rome 2. Even on ships, they would mount scorpions to take out the crew of their foe's deck from a distance. Artillery would rarely be used on the field though. Julius Caesar, most notably of all, was of course the exception, as his artillery saw frequent use in the Gallic operations. Here they would be used on the field for amphibious assaults, as well as hill or fort defenses. That is pretty much also the extent of their use on open terrain. The reasoning for this is their lack of mobility, which pretty much was key to Rome and their many victories. In terms of how we are gonna do this, we will do everything in our power to protect our artillery. Usually they would be positioned on the flanks, but instead we will set them in the center, as they will still be able to shoot above our troops and be way more protected. For the first line defense, we will have 3 units of pikemen with slingers in behind. Their long range will be crucial to help deal with the enemy before they can engage. On the flanks we will have our flexible and reliable wings as a sword and spear combo. Cavalry on the flanks as always, due to them being so damn strong. At the back we have 2 more spearmen as reserves with our general. Overall you can see we're taking a defensive approach, and that is because of the long range advantage acquired by our slingers and artillery. We can force the enemy to push our lines. If not, we will be able to snipe his most precious units on the field. And if you want to be a douche, the general is an obvious target. However, if you want to be a bit more honorable, as I like to be, you should go for these kinds of units in the following order. Elite cavalry first, second is shock infantry, third is pike, or even heavy infantry. The last 2 there, they can be switched around depending on how elite the pikemen actually are. In terms of chariots, there are way easier methods to deal with them. Regular skirmishers or pillars from infantry, for example. Elephants are too hard to hit and thus will barely be affected by artillery. That is at least from my limited testing. Today we will be using Pergamon, as their roster has the ability to fit this playstyle. Going on from that, we will pick 1 movable scorpion to give us a bit more flexibility in case your enemy just stays out of your range to force his attack. They are kinda expensive, but no more than a regular cavalry. Speaking of mounted, we're gonna have 4 of those, as they will be able to pin our opponent's cavalry. Furthermore, 2 of them should be skirmish cavalry to keep your enemies occupied and therefore allow you to snipe more men. Rhodians and regular slingers in behind to further increase our range advantage to deal with enemy skirmishers or cavalry trying to take out your artillery. The rest will just be random units to block infantry from reaching your scorpions. With that said, let's see if we can pull this off against Heroes of the Greeks, who is playing as the Seleucids. Starting off, we sent our Jav cavalry to try and halt his approach. He was still out of range, so instead we tried to harass his cavalry, which didn't go as planned. During the chase, a single troop got caught and apparently the rest didn't want to leave anyone behind and thus stopped to get killed like idiots. However, his main army just walked towards us, giving us plenty of time to snipe his pikemen approaching us. Knowing he would have had the cavalry advantage now, I tucked in our flanks to create a defensive sphere. Our Rhodian spears and cavalry all waiting in the back to prepare for an imminent cavalry fight. Scorpions kept firing away at all cylinders. As they got too close, we made our move. Skirmishers on the elephants, spears and cavalry, and our own to pin everything down. This meant, however, we couldn't deal with his slingers, that all focused fire on our artillery. At the front, we used our flexibility to run around his lines and encircle his infantry. Soon enough, it got reinforced by our backline, as they had dealt with most of his cavalry and, due to his elephants, pretty much routed before doing anything, leaving this as a decisive victory. We can see my cavalry didn't do that well. But when compared to what they were going up against, I couldn't be much happier than I am. Our Scorpions did excellent, both in terms of kills and making Heroes of the Greeks attack with a hoplite army. After the battle, he told me his plan was to make a hammer and anvil, but by mistake his cavalry became the anvil and his infantry the hammer, where it actually should have been the other way around. I couldn't have said it better myself. Against the AI as Armenia, it was pretty simple. I saw they had deployed their heavy cavalry on the front lines just in the range of my Scorpions, allowing us to pick them off in no time at all. This basically meant that we could win the battle on the flanks with ease and do rear charges afterwards. Another decisive victory. If you want to look at the stats, here they are. Other than that, let's talk about how to defeat artillery. It can be quite tricky to counter in my opinion. Heroes of the Greeks did kill my artillery eventually, with his skirmishers, which definitely was the right move. But he was way too slow, allowing them to dominate the field of battle. But slingers can definitely be ticked off as a counter. For number 2, I would actually say rushing. Getting into combat with the enemy as fast as possible will mean the artillery will be forced to cause friendly fire or be completely useless. The third method is to stay in cover. That could be anything from a forest to conceal your forces, or a small hill breaking the field of vision. If they can't shoot you, they are pretty much useless. Last but certainly not least is movement. Spread out, focus on the flanks, forcing the artillery user to choose what direction to fire. It can be challenging and require a lot of focus, but it's definitely the best counter. For my final verdict, I can only say artillery is pretty much OP. If you are fighting on a plain field, that is. If I wanted to kill the general of my enemy within the first 2 minutes of the battle, I could have, basically winning me the battle right off the bat. But if you are playing on a forested map with a lot of cover, the story changes. There they won't be effective enough to be worth the 2000 gold, unless you allow them to keep firing at you, that is. Against the AI, I would pretty much say artillery can be game changing as long as they have ammo. With that said, I would like to hear what you think about the use of artillery. Do you find it too strong like I do, or maybe not even worth the cost? Let me know in the comments below. But until the next time, goodbye.